Hey guys, so we're talking about cross contour lines today, and I'm going to introduce you the assignment about doing a cross contour drawing of your hands. But first I'm going to show you what I mean by doing a much simpler object. And I hope that this comes across well. I'm going to have to be moving the camera around because I need to get different angles, so it's not going to be as stationary as normal. I'm going to start with a very simple object, just like the video I sent you earlier. So I'm going to start with this cup. Don't pay attention to my messy table. So when drawing a very simple object that doesn't have a lot of ins and outs to it, you're just going to draw the basic contour to it first. Well, that is a pitiful cup, isn't it? But I'm not worried too much about being perfect because, for one thing, I'm looking at this through the camera lens, and this is really hard to do. So cross contour basically means you're covering an object in lines that is informing the three-dimensionality of the form. So you're making basically a visual map of the form by following the contours of it. In other words, if I go straight across like that, all the way across here, it's not going to tell me that that cup is round. So instead, I'm going to need to follow the contour of the cup and make my lines follow the shape of the lip of the cup. And that's going to make a lot more sense. So one way I think about cross contour is trying to visualize what an object would look like if I wrapped a string all the way around it, or a wire or something of that sort. What would the object look like if I did that? You would still see how the object goes back in space on either side. These lines don't tell me a whole lot because they're just straight down, but they do show me that the cup isn't just all straight all the way across, straight up and down. It tells me that there's an angle to the sides of the cup. So that gives you an idea of what I'm talking about over here in a very, very simplified object. Now with your hand, it's going to be a lot more complicated. Hopefully you can tell that this is my palm side up of my hand, and that this one over here is going to be the back side of my hand, because I've drawn in my hand bones a bit. As you can see on the back of your hand, you can't see them on the front of your hand, so on the palm of your hand. So that's going to give me an idea of how the lines work and how the shape of the back of my hand looks as opposed to the shape of the front of my hand. You can see that I have not connected all of my lines cleanly like I did here. I started some and let them disappear in the areas that have the most fat on my hand, so they're coming up in space more. And these parts where it's going down into space, I've gotten darker with my lines, and I've also let the lines get closer together. So anywhere where there's shadow, your lines are going to get closer together. They're also going to get slightly darker, which means you're going to be paying attention to the pressure that you put on your pencil lead as you draw your lines. Now, crossing them together is not the same as hatching or cross-hatching. Cross contour is more of a visual kind of a line map. It's not shading. You're giving an impression of shadow and light because there's an impression of where the light hits the palm of my hand more here than here in the middle and over here on the edges. Everything kind of goes back into space. Also notice how my hand is rounded on the sides. No one has a flat angular hand on the sides, so I allowed my pencil marks to go around the back side to show that roundness on the side of your hand. And over here I kind of switched directions just because I knew I wanted to go in this direction for the fingers. So either way is fine, it doesn't really matter. Also notice that I didn't do a whole lot of the vertical lines. I could finish it up and do it all complete, but I'm not going to because I want to give just a basic impression of where those lines get closer together, where the shadows are, where that part of your hand is that the light is hitting and where the light is not because it indents into space. So obviously around your wrist, it's going to get tighter and the lines are closer together and darker, but then when it comes out into your forearm, there's more light because it's a much more rounded area that doesn't have as many folds and creases as the palm of your hand does. So that being said, I'm going to tell you something that I did, and you're probably going to be surprised, but I did actually trace my hand on this one. Not because I think tracing is okay all the time, but I want you to concentrate mostly on your contour lines for this project. I'm more concerned with you building up the space and the object from the inside out this time, instead of just concentrating on your outline and your contour line. So cross contour lines are going to help you with that outside line. They're going to help you figure out how the whole thing works. And before now, we've only gone from the outside in. Another reason is that I can't be there with you guys to talk to you about anatomy. I can't be there to guide you as we do life studies of our hands, which is something that we would be doing right now at this point in the semester. So I'm okay with you doing a light outline of your hand by tracing. However, if you trace your hand, you'll notice that it does not look like a perfect hand. So once you trace it, go back, look at your hand, and correct it. Because when I traced mine, the wrist came out very small and the fingers came out spindly, and it just didn't look very good. So once you do that, correct it and make it look like a more believable hand, please. But the main object of this assignment is to talk about these lines that are inside the object. So basically the volume of the space within the object, not the outside outline. What I want you to do is do the front and back of your hand. It doesn't matter if it's your left or your right hand. Obviously, you're going to want to draw with your dominant hand. So use the other one. And go down about, maybe not all the way to your elbow, but most of the way down to your forearm. And this is done on your big 18 by 24 paper. And that's the next assignment.